I'm Gordon Steen. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of CleanTech Lithium, and I'm going to talk to you about, actually the timing is perfect after that last presentation, because we're one of those strands, so we provide the product for one of those strands of the energy market. So I'm going to talk to you about three things in this presentation, or three themes around our company. One is lithium, lithium as a product, and how important that is to the world and the climate change crisis. Second is Chile, why Chile and why we're operating in Chile. And the third is sustainability. What is it we're doing that is changing the way that Chile, in particular, and other places in the world, bringing that lithium product to the world. So before I go into the presentation, lithium, it's probably the most in-demand product that's going to be in the world over the next 2 or 3 years as the market changes. Every analyst report suggests there's going to be a 30% increase in demand for lithium over the course of the next 10 years, each year. Why electric cars and electric car batteries? Particularly in China and elsewhere, the demand for lithium is growing. And actually what's happened over the last few years is you've had a supply and a demand pretty much in an equilibrium. So then you can see that. But as you look towards the future, as that demand continues to grow, the supply isn't coming through in anywhere near as fast enough. So what's happening is the world is changing about how you can source lithium. So lithium in the past, you've either sourced it from hard rock in Australia, and that is mining, these huge holes in the ground, mining, spodumene out, sending it to China on a boat, and the 95% of it's thrown away, processed. You end up with a 1% of that mine. It's pretty horrible carbon footprint. Evaporation ponds, this is in Chile, historically evaporation ponds using brine, salty water effectively, and using mile after mile of evaporation ponds, letting the sun, incredibly an inefficient process, create a lithium product, which you then have to process and so on. That's all changing now because the market world, because of this supply-demand curve, is changing. Chile itself has got the most reserves of lithium in the world. It was the largest producer of lithium up until about 4 or 5 years ago. It's been overtaken by Australia. Argentina's catching up fast. And whilst it's got the reserves, it's been pretty inefficient historically about unlocking new projects. And that is now changing rapidly. And actually, we've been the most active company in Chile by far in the last 3 years in terms of moving forward in terms of the new sustainability. And on that sustainability, I'm going to show you on this presentation how we're doing it in a clean and sustainable way. And it can be done differently by applying technologies that have been used in other industries in a way that you can do it in this. And actually, interestingly, just as an aside, we introduced this in Chile 18 months ago, showed it to the government. This was then 6 months later, the government announced that all new lithium projects in Chile will adopt the technology that we are applying and that other companies are applying in different places around the world. So where are we? We're in the northern part of Chile. I don't know if there's a little arrow or whether this works or not. I don't know if there's a no, there's not. It's not a. We've the two projects in the southern part there, Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin. These are 4,300 meters up in the Andes. The nearest people are 100 kilometers away. This is pretty barren territory up there in the mountains. And we've got two projects there. We've had two scoping studies. We've done 14 wells on those projects over the course of the last 2.5 years. Nobody else has done anything like that. We've done those wells to find out what resource is there. This is a resource that's underground. It's about 100 meters underground to 500 meters, and effectively it's a brine, which is basically a salty water, but it has certain quantities of lithium in it. So we've done two scoping studies, independent studies, looking at the projects based on a resource of 2.7 million tons. What does that mean? That means probably 20 to 30 year life projects on each of the projects. And if you translate that into 30 or 40,000 tons a year of lithium, that will supply between 500,000 and 1 million electric cars a year in lithium supply. So this is pretty chunky stuff. We've also got two projects in the north. They're more exploration focused. We'll get to those down the line. Probably the most important part is we're using Direct Lithium Extraction. I'll tell you how that works and what we're doing about that. And actually, we implemented and commissioned a pilot plant, the biggest pilot plant or demonstration plant in South America, and that's up and running. We announced results out of that, the first lot of results out last week, and they exceeded every expectation we've got. I'll show you some of those results. So what we're going to do is we're going to supply a premium product into the EV market. and this is a product probably will get a premium price because EU, US demanding transparency of where your product's coming from and has to have a certain percentage of green or sustainable footprint as part of that process. As I mentioned, Chile's got the largest reserves globally. It needs to unlock those, and it's going through a change process at the moment. And the key thing for us is engagement with local communities. Although the nearest communities live 100 kilometres down the mountain, they see the land we're on as their ancestral land. We engaged with them 3 years ago, and we've signed the first. In fact, the Queensland University we've been talking to, they provide all the ESG support. I think it's the first one in the world where we've signed up a group of indigenous communities to work with us on our EIA. So their fingerprints will be all over it. And they're actually actively out there supporting our projects. Normally they stop projects in Chile. And we're about 3-4 months away from having conversations with strategic partners. These are household names. Your Tatas, your BMWs, your battery manufacturers. They're all out there looking to secure supply. Why? Because everyone knows this supply-demand curve is coming. So they're out there looking to secure supply, and a lot of them are now going upstream to secure that supply. So we've got some pretty interesting conversations going on at the moment under NDA as we start to actually get our product out into the market. And on the board, this is the supply-demand curve you see in the top right there. This is not our numbers, this is Benchmark Minerals, probably the leading analysts in looking at lithium supply and demand. And as you see there, it's pretty much in equilibrium at the moment, but that will change. And so every analyst from Goldman Sachs to whoever are saying that, come 27, 28, there is going to be a dearth of lithium supply. So you have to fill that gap, and some of what we're doing will allow the market to fill that gap. And so these estimates are pretty good. That's our company. Why has our share price dropped over the last year? Lithium price came down. There was the lithium price hit a high of $80,000 a ton. It's now around about $15,000 a ton. The market is looking to see, and all the analysts are saying that this will recover as that supply demand starts to move, and you're good likely to see a $20,000, $30,000 a ton as a kind of medium to longer term number. That fits in nicely because our running costs are $4,000 a ton. There's a lot of margin there for us. And as you see, we put our results out yesterday, and we're pretty well capitalised and so forth. We think there's a lot of room for growth. We've had a good couple of weeks because we put those first lot of results out. Our projects, I think I pretty much touched on that. You see there the bottom two there, the Laguna Verde is the more advanced project. It's probably the most advanced new project in Chile by a long way, and I'll explain a bit more about that. You see up there in the top right, that's the lithium triangle, Bolivia, Argentina and Chile, and that has by far and away the largest supply of lithium anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of activity in all those three countries at the moment. Laguna Verde, this is our flagship project. You see there all the little boxes around there. They're all wells we've drilled in the last 3 years. Pretty active campaign. These are wells, not particularly deep wells, 500, 600 meters. But we're looking to find that resource, and we don't touch the laguna. That's sacrosanct. That's a tourist area, and it's beautiful. It's accessing the subsurface, what's under the ground there, and these are mile after mile of a large homogeneous source of lithium alongside various other products in there. Scoping study economics I'll show you in a minute. The important thing is the PFS is underway. We've engaged Worley, the international firm. We're working with about 12 other consultants. The jigsaw piece coming together of where your power is coming from, where your activities, where your water is, and various other aspects of how we're going to take the project forward. So once the PFS is out in Q3, early Q4, we'll be passing that to strategic partners. Say, here's a project. This is how it's going to work. This is where we're going to have the ports. This is the project, and that's where we go into the banks and we have conversations with the banks and so on. This is a large area. It's 217 square kilometres. We own the entire basin. I don't think there's another company in Chile that owns the entire basin, and that's very clever land management by the founders of the company who secured the licenses a number of years ago. By the way, this road, this bit here, that dotted line, that's the main highway between Chile and Argentina. So we don't have to build any roads. We've got roads on site. This is a paved highway, and if you go another 20 kilometres, you're in Argentina. So we're blessed with really good infrastructure. We've got water on site. Local communities are 100 kilometres away, so we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And how do we do that sustainably? These are some jumpy numbers. This is a scoping study. It's an early stage analysis, but it was independently done. You see there on the right one of our rigs there. We're trying to drill around the laguna because that's underneath the laguna and underneath the land there is where the main sources of supply are. But you see some of the numbers there. You get a 30-year lifespan and 20,000 tonnes a year. That's pretty extensive. You know, you're supplying a lot of car batteries there. And you see post-tax IRR, I mean, MPV of about 1.8 billion. That's at $22,000 a tonne and 45% IRR. So the economics in this are extremely robust. And obviously, depending on the lithium price, there's a lot of potential upside. I think then the interesting number there is 383 million. It's probably 450 today with inflation. How can a company our size, you know, raise 400 million? And I'll show you later on. We're already getting some very serious offers. We can easily. That's one of the things I don't worry about is funding this project, because if we can evidence that we've got that and we can produce lithium sustainably, we won't have a problem securing people who will fund this to secure supply. I think I've been through that. We're going through a process now to get to that, you know, construction phase, and we're going through it mechanically. Second project, Francisco Basin, it's very similar to the first project. It's about 2 years behind, I'd say now. We pretty much put this on we drilled 6 wells up until last year. We've got a resource which is about half the size of the other resource. But it's a very, very similar project. We're drilling away from the laguna. We've got some good recoveries and so on. So this is project 2 we'll bring to the table when we're ready, and we'd like to get back drilling again, probably later on this year. Again, we've had a scoping study, very, very robust economics to support a project of that size. And I'd say on the bottom right there, you know, $3,600 a tonne. You're looking at 3-4 times that in Australia to produce the lithium out the ground and then transport it across to China. So really good economics and running costs. And then we've got a couple of projects. I won't really major on them. We've really put them on the side. By the way, the Southern Atacama is the largest lithium production area in the world today. We spotted a gap last year. There were some licenses available. No one had gone for them. So we've secured them. That's down the line. We'll have a look at that, see if there's any value in that. But that's an interesting one for the future. I think I've touched on this. We're really blessed with, we've got paved roads all the way. We've got ports. There's 3 or 4 really good ports. Chile's a mining country. You know, it's the largest supplier of copper to the world. And you know, it's got gold and various other things. So actually the infrastructure supporting it, whether it's substations, whether it's electricity power, we will also be using 100% renewable power as well. We can guarantee that through the grid in Chile. 60 to 70% of Chile's grid today is renewable because of solar, because of where it is, and hydro from the south as well. And one interesting statistic here is if you're doing an evaporation pond to get 1 tonne of battery grade lithium out, we are 1/50th in terms of use of water compared to an evaporation pond. You're just a mile of just evaporating water into the air in an area, whereas we don't need the water anywhere near it as much. Funding, interestingly, you see some of the companies down there, some of them are under NDA with us. I mean, you know, Cattle's the biggest battery manufacturer in the world. You've got Trafigura, you've got the commodity traders, the car companies. We've had people to site. So some interesting conversations already taking place. And this project will sustain, you know, 60 to 70% debt, also with import and export credit facilities, particularly in Germany. Germany, they're offering some pretty chunky funding facilities to supply the German car manufacturers because they're desperate for that supply of lithium. Otherwise, they're going to lose out to China. I've talked about this. This is just the operating cost curve. You see that on the left. We're in this green bit here. We're in this low cost area because of the way we do it, and I'll show you in a minute. You can see on the right there the cost of producing hard rock and other areas. So we're in the right space. This is the key to the future. This is what Chile's adopted now as its national lithium strategy around. And what's going on here? The aquifer is underground, pretty homogeneous. We take the brine out from the aquifer, we take it out, it's natural, it comes out naturally, we bring it to surface. And in that brine is about 200 parts per million. That's very small. You could never use this brine in an evaporation pond. It would take you years for the sun to get the concentration sufficiently high to make battery-grade lithium. DLE is a process being used in the uranium industry and so on. It's basically using resins which you have in containers. These resins are, I'm trying to think how you describe them, smaller than well, what do you call them? Salt rock or whatever. These are tiny little resins. They've got thousands of little holes in them, and they capture, you put the resin through columns that have got these beads and millions and billions of these, and lithium's a very, very small molecule that gets caught in these. And the efficiency of this is quite astonishing. We got 94% efficiency. We caught 94% of the lithium in our brine in this. And I'll show you some of the results we've got. So you're effectively taking out the brine from the subsurface. You're putting it through this process, which I'll show you in a minute. And then you process it in a downstream facility, which is a standard facility where they're using evaporation ponds or whatever, to create battery-grade lithium. And then what do? We re-inject it back in the reservoir elsewhere. How can we do that? We have 100% of the entire basin. We control the entire basin, so we can choose. And we have hydrological studies being undertaken by independent parties at the moment, working out, what's the porosity, how fast will it come out, how many wells do we need, and where do we re-inject. So the one thing about DLE is you're doing 2 days what it'll take an evaporation pond 1 to 2 years. And you'll do twice the efficiency. Evaporation ponds will do 40 to 50% recovery of lithium. This is 80 to 90 to more percent. And so you're effectively using a chemical process. By the way, this is not nasty stuff. This is alumina based. And these once you've got the resin in the columns, you have 5% loss of resin a year. You use it time and time again. So once you've got I'll show you the pilot plant in a minute and show you what's going on there. So very short production. So you can imagine from an efficiency point of view, it's extremely efficient. No requirement for evaporation ponds, no subsurface aquifer depletion, because we put everything back in the ground apart from the lithium. And then very low CO2 emissions because we're using 100% renewable energy. That's the intent. This middle little block, that's about 20 metre tall columns. These are in China. These are operating plants in China. And this is our pilot plant. It doesn't look very, these are about 3 metre tall columns. There's 30 of them. This is in our R&D facility in Copiapó. It's a huge warehouse. This took us 1.5 years to order, bring across. It's actually a Chinese company who's got an operating facility in Belgium. This was fabricated in Belgium, sent across. And during the latter part of last year and the early part of this year, we commissioned this. So what this is doing is using, these columns are filled with these resins. We tested about 6 or 7 different companies of different resins from around the world, from America, to work out what's the right resin for our brine. And the resin that we used was a Chinese company we're using, and we'll continue to test whether, and we're getting some interesting results from an American company as well. So finding that right resin that works for your brine. So when we bring on the other project, Francisco Basin, it's likely we use a different resin to what we're using at Laguna Verde because the brine nature of the brine is different. So what you're doing there is effectively you're adsorbing the lithium onto these tiny beads, and then you go through another process of desorbing, which is basically using water to basically wash out the lithium. So what you're creating is an eluate, which is a concentrated lithium source, which you can then use and concentrate. So this is, we think this is the biggest pilot plant in South America. This is being inaugurated tomorrow. There's a big thing. There's government ministers coming. There's local communities. There's the local journalists and so on. So this will be in the press in Chile, because what we're doing is demonstrating that what is great in a lab actually works in an industrial scale. This it was designed for 1 ton a month. Because the resin's so efficient, we reckon we can get 1.8 tons a month of battery-grade lithium from this product, from this facility. We can send that around the world to car companies, battery manufacturers, say, we can produce battery-grade lithium, are you interested? And that's where the conversations get very interested. These are the results we put out last week. You start with 196, say 200 parts per million, so you imagine this is tiny levels. And by going through that initial process, this pilot plant, you move it from that to about 700 parts per million, and then you go through a process called a reverse osmosis. Again, this is now a facility. You get it up so you have to 2,200 parts per million. You've basically multiplied by 11 times what you take out of the ground. Yeah, and then what we do is we put it into a ship container. And actually, there's a press release going out tomorrow. We're after market. Press release going out tomorrow with the first container. 24 cubic meters of eluate, that's an eluate solution of lithium, on its way to the States, because the downstream part, which is producing the battery lithium, it's a pretty mechanical process, that will arrive within the next 4 to 5 weeks, being shipped to Chicago, and then it'll go through a process, it'll be independently validated, and then you've got lithium carbonate. It's the white stuff in the corner there. That's what you sell into the worldwide market. What astonished us was the efficiency of the resin, because what we found was you've got all these other products in your lithium, in your brine. Look at that, potassium, sodium, complete rejection, 100% of that. So we'd have to worry about that. Magnesium and so on. So these numbers are really good. Boron, we expected, will go through a process called ion exchange. That will sort out. So basically, we've got a product which we've already sent to America and had tested in 200 litres. So they're ready for the shipment, and they'll be able to produce battery-grade lithium from this, with the knowledge that the impurities have been pretty much rejected by this process. So that will go back underground again and go back into the reservoir in that circular process. So we put out a press announcement last week saying that this was exceeded all our expectations, and this is great. And we'll continue to optimize the process as we go through different stages over the course of the next few months. Chile's supportive government, it's a mining country, and it's got very good regulation in terms of, it's just, a contract's a contract. So the government has a national lithium strategy. We're in the heart of that. As I say, they've changed their policy now, so DLE is part of that government strategy. And operating contracts, you apply for an operating contract. We've got our license position. We're at the front of the queue. The Minister of Finance announced a couple of weeks ago that they want to have 4 new projects on stream by 2026. If they're going to do that, there's only 2 that can anywhere near that, which is our 2 projects. So we're in a very good position there in terms of actually, and Chile goes around the world. Yellen was in Chile 2 or 3 weeks ago at one of the lithium plants there, talking to the Chile minister. So America sees Chile as a great source of lithium in the future. So just to kind of sum up, about our company. We're now at the cusp now. We're actually getting results out. 2.5 year, 3 years results. We'll have reserves coming from Laguna Verde from our current drilling campaign within the next 2 months. That's an independent study by an American consultant. We've got product coming out from our pilot plant, really exciting, and that will continue to grow as we go forward. And we've got a product we can sell into the market in a country with the biggest reserves in the world. So we're in a really good place to expand our footprint and do other projects as well. I didn't really touch on the engagement with the local community. I can't remember if there's a slide on this, but yes, there is. Great. This is a signing ceremony last December. I was there, and this is the lady there, the little small lady in the front there. You wouldn't want to mess with her. She's challenged the government on numerous occasions with very good lawyers, and she's stopped projects. She's actually sitting down and offering to go around the world and promoting our projects. This lady spent half her life on horseback in her own ancestral lands, but she's quite an amazing lady. And so with all those communities, 3 different communities represented there, they're actually sitting with government saying, this is how you need to do it. So you see some of the, we had the University of Toronto, 30 people there at our pilot plant last week, and they say we've got the inauguration tomorrow. There'll be quite a decent turnout tomorrow. So as a company, we've got a lot of news flow coming over the next 6 months. We'll be engaging with some very interesting names and with different banks and so on. So we're at an inflection point. We're also dual listing on ASX. Yeah, we're dual listing on ASX within the next month. Why? Because we think that linked side by side with London Stock Exchange, we'll get a value uplift, and we'll have those 2 working. AIM will still be the primary market, but we're doing that. We've been through a process for last year. So I think that really is, the sum up, perfect timing.